This morning, emergency alerts lit up phones across Dubai, Sharjah, and Ajman. Residents were told to seek shelter immediately. Minutes later, another notification arrived saying the danger had passed and normal activity could resume. At the same time, journalists in Dubai reported hearing explosions overhead as air defense systems intercepted incoming threats. And almost simultaneously, Iran allegedly launched 2 drones at an oil tanker linked to the Abu Dhabi National Oil Company while it attempted to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. Most media outlets will treat these as separate incidents. One story about missile alerts in Dubai, another about an attack on an oil tanker. But they are not separate stories. They are part of the same story, and that story is not really about drones or missiles. It is about the illusion of a ceasefire and the growing realization that the conflict in the Gulf never truly stopped. The ceasefire announced in early April created the impression that the most dangerous phase of the crisis had ended. Governments, markets, shipping companies, and media organizations began acting as if stability had returned to the region. But the ceasefire only paused one thing: large-scale bombing. It did not reopen the Strait of Hormuz. It did not stop attacks on commercial shipping. It did not end American pressure on Iranian ports. And most importantly, it did not answer the central question driving the entire conflict. Who controls the Strait of Hormuz after the war? That question remained unresolved. And today, it exploded back into focus. The sequence of events matters. On May 3rd, Donald Trump announced what he called Project Freedom, describing it as a humanitarian mission to escort stranded commercial ships safely out of Hormuz. He said crews aboard trapped vessels were running low on food, water, and medical supplies. The United States committed destroyers, aircraft, drones, and thousands of personnel to support the operation. But there was also a warning attached to the announcement. Any interference with the mission would be met forcefully. Iran responded the next morning. Senior Iranian military officials warned that any foreign military force entering or approaching the Strait of Hormuz would be targeted. Hours later, reports emerged that Iranian drones had struck the ADNOC-linked tanker Baraka while it was transiting the strait. No casualties were reported, but the political message was unmistakable. UAE officials condemned the strike as a violation of international navigation laws. Senior Gulf leaders described the attack as dangerous, reckless, and unacceptable. The language coming from the region no longer sounded like diplomacy managing a stable ceasefire. It sounded like governments trying to contain an active war zone, and then Dubai itself went under missile alert. The timing matters. Because while emergency sirens echoed across the Emirates, the United States was simultaneously presenting Project Freedom as proof that stability was returning to Hormuz. But reality told a different story. 2 commercial ships may have crossed safely, yet an oil tanker was attacked, missile alerts were triggered, and air defenses activated over one of the world's most important financial hubs. That is not what a stable ceasefire looks like. The deeper issue is that Iran is no longer behaving as if the closure of Hormuz is temporary. Tehran appears to be building a long-term legal and financial system around control of the strait itself. According to multiple reports, Iran's parliament is preparing legislation that would permanently formalize Iranian authority over transit through Hormuz. Under the proposed framework, hostile nations could face restrictions or additional costs, while foreign ships may require explicit authorization before crossing. If implemented, that would represent a major challenge to the traditional international system of free maritime navigation that has governed the strait for decades. And this is where the tanker attack becomes strategically important. The strike was not just a military action. It was also a demonstration of enforcement, a signal that Iran intends to back its claims with force if necessary. At the same time, a financial transformation may also be unfolding beneath the surface of the conflict. Reports suggest that some oil transactions connected to Hormuz are increasingly being conducted outside traditional dollar-based systems, including settlements involving Chinese yuan and alternative financial channels. Whether limited or symbolic, these developments matter because they hint at a broader shift in global energy trade. And this is exactly why China's silence is attracting so much attention. Beijing has said almost nothing publicly about today's events. No dramatic statements, no military threats, no visible intervention. But silence does not mean inactivity. While the United States is committing military resources and absorbing political risk, China appears to be positioning itself carefully in the background. Chinese-linked energy flows continue moving. Chinese financial systems may gain relevance as sanctions pressure increases. And Beijing enters future negotiations from a position that may actually be improving as the crisis drags on. This is why some analysts increasingly describe the situation in blunt terms. The United States is heavily engaged, but struggling to produce decisive outcomes. China, meanwhile, may be gaining strategic advantages without directly entering the conflict. That broader reality changes how today's events should be understood. The Dubai missile alert was not just a local security scare. The tanker strike was not just an isolated attack. And Project Freedom was not simply a humanitarian operation. Together, they revealed something much larger. The ceasefire may have paused the language of war, but it never truly resolved the conflict itself. And now the world is beginning to confront the consequences of that reality.